All right, welcome back to week 6. So, in this week, we are going to learn another important topic that is called deep learning. I gave you a bit of background about what is the deep learning. I said that it's a part of machine learning, but when you're going to work with a big data set, we need a very big architecture, deep architecture that is called deep learning. So every day we use a lot of things. For example, you use Alexa, Siri, and many more things. So what these are the applications of deep learning. And even you use the ChatGPT, LLM, and many more LLM models. These all are part of deep learning. So we are going walking there. So what is the objective of this lecture mainly? Understand neural network. When we talk about deep learning, first things comes in mind is neural network. I'll explain how neural network work, and then we'll go for build Keras neural network using layers. What is the Keras? How does it help us to write the code? Activation functions, the loss function, optimizer. We'll learn about it. And we'll do practicals to train a convolution neural network, is the short from a CNN, on a specific data set called MNIST dataset. So I'll explain also about it. And we'll also do another example train on a recurrent neural network using another dataset. Then we'll show visualize training progress in TensorBoard, understand pre-trained models, ImageNet, what are that. So these are the objective, learning objective for this week mainly. What is deep learning? As I say that these are powerful tools of machine learning. When we work a small data set, like a number, some sort of classification, some sort of regressions with a small data set. This time we use the machine learning. We use the small data set like a support vector machines, logistic regressions, decision trees, this kinds of models. These are mainly called machine learning models. But when we have to work on a very big data, and we need a huge computational power to handle this type of big data. This time we need deep architecture to understand the pattern. For example, if you work with the human brain signals, if you work with audio bias signals, you work on images, you work on videos, these are really big data. There's a lot of memories. So to handle this kind of data, we need a deep learning, deep architecture. Okay. So here I use two keywords, Keras and TensorFlow. What is the Keras and TensorFlow? If I go for TensorFlow, TensorFlow is an architecture, or I can say these are a library that's created by Google. This mainly help you to write the code to call the packages based on your requirement. What is the Keras? Keras is in the top of TensorFlow. When you will try to write the code using the TensorFlow, you have to write a lot of things, means a lot of code on that. But if you use the Keras, Keras can help you just simply call the keyword. For example, you can just simply call the predict keywords, just dot predict, a dot fit. This kind of simple keywords you can use to train your model. You don't have to write a lot of code. So that is the things of Keras, about Keras and TensorFlow. Okay. What is the applications of deep learning? There are different applications. Computer visions. When you see visions, means something so the images or videos. For example, when you open your the mobile screen, you can use your face to open the lock, right? That is applications of computer visions in deep learning. Self-driving cars. We use that, we know the Tesla using deep learning architecture to train their car. Okay, the Indian models, chatbot. Sometimes we talk to virtual agents. When we are trying to connect with someone, so they have a virtual assistant. They can help us. This is an application of deep learning. Medical diagnosis. Even if we get an X-ray report or any other MRI report, something, so we can give to the models. The model can explain. They can detect in this X-ray are there any tumor or not. Means are there any anomaly that in this X-ray or any other report they can predict it. So speech and translations, we know that Google Translator is very useful tools, and there are many more tools that we can use to translate one languages to another languages. Generative AI, so we know that ChatGPT and many other models that every day we are using. There is another applications of deep learning. Okay. Data set can use for our practice. So how can we start from where we have to start, where we can get the data set? I said that Kaggle, one resource that I said in previous slides, that we have one very popular resource is Kaggle's. Other than that, the models, the Kaggle's itself has some data set that you can use. Just simply, you don't have to download the data set from Kaggle. You don't have to upload it. You just simply call this data set names, then automatically it will pull up and you can use this. Okay, so if you see the first one is MNIST data set, it is mainly a 28 into 20 grayscale, means it's not a color, it's a gray image. Handwrite disease means mainly we know that the digit start from 0, it has a 9. So based on different handwriting from different peoples, they created a big data set. So the goal of the data set is to classify the what is the 0, what is the 1s, what it means. Classification is going to be 10 classifications. You have to predict from this data, you have to predict what is the 0, what is the 1, what is 2, what is 3, means up to 9. So for the size, it has 60,000 training data set and 10,000 test data set. Means it has total 70,000 total number of digits you have to classify. And for that, we'll use CNN architecture. We'll do it here in our in this lecture. Then we have another data set that's got fashion MNIST. The MNIST was only for digit, right? Fashion MNIST is used for different type of cloth classification, shoes classifications. It means based on your picture, they'll classify is this shoes or is this a cloth or is there any other things. I mean, it has also different 10 categories. Again, the size is same, 60,000 training, 10,000 testing. You can do this exercise by yourself, okay? And we'll do another practice. It's called IMDb reviews. So for this mainly a movie reviews from a total of 50,000 movie. So we'll do practice on it also. There are two more data set, CIFAR 10, CIFAR 100. CIFAR 10 is 10 categories, means it has 10 classification classes. For CIFAR 100, it has 100 classes. So you can do exercise by yourself, okay? So I'll show you two, and you have 3 more to do exercise by yourself, okay? All right, so how can we start setting up for a Keras and TensorFlow? We know that we are using Colab here, but sometimes a student use the Jupyter Notebook or many other tools for the writing the code. So for Colab, this is perfectly fine. It has a default setting, so we don't have to do anything. But when you work with a Jupyter notebook, this time sometimes you have to create environment. Why is environment important? Sometimes you install TensorFlow 2.3, but the package is supporting for your work is 2.5. This time you have to struggle and it could gonna crash. So that's why we have to get a separate environments. In this environment, we can install all our packages to that are requirements. So this slide mainly shows how can you create the environment. If you see here, conda create, and this is the keyword /n tf environment. This is the mainly environment name. So You can change any other names. TF environment means TF-ENV means TensorFlow environment. I say that, but if you want, you can change it any other names. Then I said I want to install TensorFlow. I want to install Anaconda. I want to install IPythons. I want to install Jupyter Labs. The scikit-learns, Matplotlib, and Seaborn. These are all the packages that I want to create. So when you run this command, it will automatically create an environment for you. So how can you activate this environment? For that, you have to write conda activate tf-env, means the environment that you created tf-env. You have to just command this conda activate. So if you're done with your work, you can simply deactivate conda deactivate. Okay. All right, and now we moved on the main part that is called neural network, the foundation of deep learning. What is the neural network? You can say it is kind of copy or mimic from a human brain. So you know we have the neurons in our brains, and when the neuron communicate with other neurons, there is a gap that is called synapse. Based on this gap, the neuron communicate with axon to another neuron dendrite, and the gap is synapse. The same copy mimic here. So if you see here, these are called input. The input that I'm giving to the network, this is input, and inside there are a lot of lines. What is the line? The line is mainly we say weight. So how does it work? We know one equation is y equal mx plus c. We know y is the main output, m is the we say weight here, w weight, x is the input. So if you have the x, if you consider all the input as x, for example here x1, x2, x3, x4, so you have to multiply x1 with w1, x1 with w2, means all the connections here, these are called weight. Every time when we are passing our input to the next layer, we have to multiply the input with a weight. So weight is defined differently. And we add another things plus b, that is called bias. So we have to add that. So if you say here x1, x2, x3, x4, so come x1 into w1 plus b, x1 plus W2 x1 plus W2 plus B. This way it will come here, and it is similarly it will come from these X2 neurons into the next layer. Finally, it will come to the final layer. If you see, it has three different layers. One is called input layer. The middle ones, the blue color, is called the hidden layers inside that. And the final is a predicted layer. This is the output layers. That is our final goal. So the neural architecture is kind of, it has three major things. One is input layer, hidden layers, and output layers. So hidden layers, you can increase the hidden layer as much as you want. So it depends. You can try on adding different layers on it. So as I say, the learning. So deep learning means this: we are using a lot of neurons, a lot of layers in this architecture. That's why it's called deep learning or deep neural network also. So it has a lot of parameters, as I am adding the weight all the time, weight multiplying with the input, and similarly similar things happening for hidden layers, input layer, and finally we are getting the output. So the output layer is here. So if we go for a real example, I have an MNIST data set. It has 10 classes, right? So all the time when we are giving the input to the network, you can consider these are the input, and it has the hidden layer. You can add multiple layers on it. So all the time it will calculate the calculate the weight and input with that, and it will pass through the first hidden layer, then it will move to the next hidden layer, next, and it will go forward. Finally, it will give you the output, predicted output. From the input, it will give you the predicted, hey, this is the input you gave, this is 1, this is 2. If this is correct, this is perfectly fine. If it's wrong, then you can calculate the loss. How can you calculate the loss? You have the actual output, the models, you have the predicted output. You can calculate the difference between them. Then you can calculate the loss. Hey, you predicted 2, actually this is 3. That's why you can again move forward. So I'll tell you how does it work. Okay, so this is the total neural architecture. Now, okay, we moved on now. So how network learns? As I said, that it has a weighted inputs, activation function, loss, and backpropagation. What are that? I said already input. What is the weight? Weight means the different parameters. So how to calculate the weight is a random numbers. All the times the models automatically randomly pick up the weight. So it doesn't have a defined value for the input. All the time is multiply weight with the input, okay? Then it's called activations. What is the activations function? Activations, it has different functions. When we calculate, for example, sometimes you can get the value 255. Sometimes you can get the value 0. So the gap between 255 and 0 is very big. So if we can create something between 0 and 1, we can scale it. Then the model can learn very good. There will be no biasness. For example, if you, same example for 255, if you have one value 255, another value is 0. So the models could be get biased by 255, not by 0, because the 0 is smaller. So if we can keep something between 0 and 1, scale it, so then the model will not be biased. That is called activation function. Mainly the activation function help us when you get the weight with input, and it will not directly go through to the next layer. It will pass through an activation functions. Activation function will help you to make the output between 0 and 1, means scale it, make it down, means is equal for all the values. So then it will pass to the next layer. Okay. Then loss. As I said, the loss. Loss means finally you predicted something. Hey, this is the I predicted it, and now you have the actual picture. When you are training, during the training phase, we have the actual picture, and we will get a predicted output. So we will calculate what is the loss between actual and the predictors. Then if you get the loss, then we can see, hey, there's a loss. Again, you have to train the models. That is called back propagations. What is the back propagations? So for the back propagation, we use a method that is called gradient descent. Gradient descent mainly help us to reduce the loss, to reduce the between the what is the loss means actual and predicted. If they see there is a big loss, means the number is very big, the gradient descent will help us to reduce the loss for next level. So how backpropagation work? If they see the output is strong, again, the models weight and bias gonna be updated against. It was, as I said, it's random numbers. It will first pick up a random numbers, then later it will update the weight and bias again based on the backpropagation. That's how it's total work. What is a tensor? So we know that in our regular life, we have to work on multi-dimensional. We know what is a 1D, what is the 2D, and what is a 3D. But we have sometimes many more. For example, if you work with a 0, 1, 2, 3, something like that, this is like a 0 dimension. It's considered a single value, 0, 1, 2, 3, single dimension. I mean, if you work on a 1D for something like just a simple text, long text, that is called a 1D. If you work on a two-dimensional, like a image, that is called 2D. If you work on color image, 3D, because it has extra value. For example, for grayscale, 2820. For color, you have to add another layer, another code that is called 3, 4, something like that. Okay, for color, RGB. And 4D, if you work with a video or a collection of image, 4D. If you work a collection of video, that is called 5D. So as in the deep learning, we have to work all different type of data sets. So that is called also tensor. Okay. So I'm not going to make the video more longer. So I'm stopping here. So in the next video, I'll show you how can you work through the CNN in MNIST dataset, using the CNN in MNIST dataset. All right. So I'm stopping sharing here.